Harmon Ortiz. We heard from the mayor. We heard from the director of the FBI there in Boston, and obviously everybody is just very grateful that something like this is over and is relieved, and thanking the public for all of their help in this situation. In the meantime, I do have we are waiting on the president, who will be addressing the country shortly, but in the meantime I have some fun things to show for you, because there definitely was a sense of elation locally, and so these are a number of vines that people took. So you can see everybody gathering in the street and cheering all at once. Here is another one that I have for you. People waving a flag. So the people of Boston are happy and relieved. I think that it is safe to say. Here's another one that we have. And this was, it looks like, in the immediate aftermath of the police announcing that they had indeed arrested the suspect at the house. And I have one final vine for you. Again, just showing all of the crowds and all of the people of Boston coming out onto the streets to express their joy in what has obviously been a very crazy week for the city. Here's a funny tweet that we have from Justin Robert Young, who said, "Remember when you watched 24 and you were like, how can all that shit happen in one day?" Well, I think that today was one of those days for all of those that were watching it unfold. Here's a tweet that we have from Rosie Gray that shows the officer that started cheering, high-fiving a photographer, again, immediately after the arrest. And one more, this was when the mayor said, "We got him." So it's definitely been a big day and a busy day in Boston, but the suspect has now been arrested. And so joining me now to discuss the latest, we have Zach Carter, our HuffPost senior political economy reporter, Max Abrahms, a poli-sci postdoc at Johns Hopkins University, and on the phone we have Michael McLaughlin. So gentlemen, thanks all for being here. Let me just start with what some of the latest developments are too, which is we have Pete Williams at NBC reporting that when the suspect can be questioned, he will not be read his Miranda rights. Public safety exception will be invoked. And that was an official telling him that, and that goes contrary to the reports that we originally saw, which is that he would be Mirandized. Zach, break this down for us a little bit, because there has been some confusion. Obviously, we saw Lindsey Graham earlier saying that he should be tried as an enemy combatant. Just because he will not be read his Miranda rights right away and the public safety exception will be invoked doesn't mean that he won't be Mirandized at all, right?
Right. There's a public safety exemption that the Supreme Court created, essentially, to the traditional Miranda right process, where if there's some sort of immediate threat to the public, to public safety or to police safety, police can question a suspect in custody without Mirandizing them, and then after the public safety period has expired, then you read the Miranda, and then the standard legal due process applies. The question really is how long a period of time the police here, investigators, will be able to question the suspect, given that he's been in custody for a while now. It is not something where there's necessarily an immediate threat that's happening immediately, but we don't really know. There were 7 different explosive devices that were defused today in Boston. So I think there's going to be some sort of very interesting legal period of time in which there's some sort of question that's going to go on, and then the sort of standard course of justice will take place.
And the thing is, obviously I think a lot of people are relieved that there is any questioning that is going to happen in general, that the suspect was indeed apprehended alive, and so that they can try to get some kind of answers here. Michael, let's go to you. You have been...
Can I just say...
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the thing is that this is quite arguably an example of international terrorism, because we know that one of the brothers apparently traveled to Russia, and we don't really know what he did there. And so I wouldn't be so quick to say we have a final resolution. There could well be a continued threat if the connections between, the Chechen organization there are strong here.
There definitely are still a lot of unanswered questions, and that's something that that officials were noting at this press conference that they just gave too, is that this investigation is not over, but this incredibly chaotic situation that was unfolding in Boston, in Watertown today was. So Michael, you've been checking in with us all day. Tell us what the scene is like where you are now. We've shown a lot of videos here, a lot of pictures of crowds cheering, everybody pouring out onto the streets. What do you see?
I'm seeing the same things as you. It's a real carnival atmosphere, lots of cheering. As police cars and ambulances drove down the street, people cheered and chanted USA. The drivers would honk the horns and use the loudspeakers to say thank you to all the public for supporting them. It's turned into a real street celebration.
By the way, I have a tweet here that I'm pulling up, which is a photograph. This is coming from HuffPost Media of the suspect on the ground. I can zoom in there a little bit closer so everybody can see. So now photographs are coming out. And this is coming from Carolyn Ryan, who's the Metro editor of the New York Times. Actually, and HuffPost Media was just retweeting it. But so, like I said, this part of the story is done. Zach, what do you think that we can expect next? We know that the president is going to be giving an address shortly. We are waiting on him, in fact.
Okay, are we going to go to the president right now, or do we have a few minutes?
No, we have a few minutes. We're waiting on him. We're expecting him at some point, but it's not happening yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the next couple of days, you're going to see quite a bit of political posturing, at least coming out of Washington. I mean, you can already see the victory laps that the various public officials involved with have been taking. Everyone from Carmen Ortiz, who's the U.S. attorney up there with the Department of Justice, to the mayor, to the governor, and we're about to hear President Obama speak. And in terms of the at least the near-term resolution, this is the absolute best possible outcome that could have been accomplished after the first suspect was killed. I would be very surprised if people don't continue to take victory laps for a few days. But I think it's interesting that both Lindsey Graham and Senator Chuck Grassley already were talking about political implications for this case, for this situation. One on national security and sort of Patriot Act, sort of civil liberties issues, and another one on the immigration reform bill. And I think you will see those types of comments get stronger now that there's been a successful resolution. Typically, people are more reluctant to politicize a case before it's over, and the fact that people were already kind of chomping at the bit to make a political point on this, I think indicates that you're going to see a lot more activity on that front in the next week or so.
Max, what about you? Obviously, in situations like this, there's always a lot of finger pointing and a lot of criticisms that come on down as well. We've heard from CBS News today reporting, for example, that the FBI, in fact, interviewed the dead Boston bombing suspect, and that was the older brother, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, 2 years ago, and and let him go because at the time that they didn't feel that there was anything that seemed suspicious or odd there. But how do you think that this is all going to play out?
I mean, we still have so many questions. We really just maybe at the tip of the iceberg in terms of seeing who was involved in this. This was not a case of lone wolves. This was not a lone wolf. This was not one person acting in isolation. It seems to me that this was a small cell. There may be local supporters, I understand, in other areas of Massachusetts outside of the city. And then, of course, we need to know what the connection is with Chechnya. And frankly, I would look into that family a little bit more with the father and in terms of what he knows. So I would really I think we're going to try to get our head around the scope of this whole thing in the coming days and weeks.
When you say that there are local supporters, from what you understand, what do you mean? Have you seen reports of that?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that there were 3 people taken in for questioning. And so, I mean, double check on that because this is a fluid news situation, but I have heard that. And plus, these terrorist incidents require a high degree of specialization. We have the pipe bombs and we have these makeshift grenades, and I'd be curious under questioning if we can find out whether there might be some additional helpers along the way.
Well, there have been some questions about collaborators, definitely. Just prior to this, about 20 minutes ago, we were talking about IEDs, improvised explosive devices, and in fact, often how simple they are to make and how anybody can look something like this up on the internet, too. And so it's hard to say one way or the other whether they had any sophisticated skills or not. Michael, what's the latest that you've heard in terms of, obviously, it's been a very hard day to try to get the information straight. It's been developing so quickly, but as to whether other people had been taken into custody for questioning, any other collaborators or supporters in the area?
I've heard the same reports from elsewhere about other people connected that were brought into questioning in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is not too far away, but I don't know too much about that. It's one of those things that remains to be seen. I didn't catch all of the press conference. It didn't sound like they announced any other suspects or arrests or anything like that, and that would have been an ideal time to talk about something along those lines.
And so, I mean, obviously you can't make predictions, but what do you think, in terms of the way that the entire event and the entire week has unfolded in Boston? Do you think tomorrow is going to be a new day in Boston in the morning?
Oh, I think so. I think it's clear that it already is right now, at least here in Watertown, where this community was under siege for the last day, and watching an extreme military presence in their front yards, and now everyone's celebrating. It's the streets were deserted hours ago, and now they're completely thronged.
And Zach, that's the thing, right? Is we did watch so much of this play out in front of the cameras. Definitely not the first time that something like that has happened. We've all seen it play out via social media as well. I read that tweet earlier. Some people were saying, how does all of this happen in one day, going back to the old Fox show 24? And at times, obviously this has been an incredibly tragic event too. There have been victims. There are a lot of families that are suffering, those that have lost their lives, those that have been gravely injured. But watching something like this unfold on television, right? I mean, it is gripping for the entire country.
It's interesting when you watch violent movies, for instance, where there's a happy ending and the bad guy gets caught and everybody is celebrating. I've always thought it's interesting, the impulse to feel celebratory at the end, given that the beginning of the movie was full of all these terrible violent things that don't get undone by the person getting caught at the end. And so I think in particular the pressure that was placed on the community of being basically on lockdown for almost 24 hours today. I think that that just builds up a lot of energy, a lot of emotion that needs somewhere to go. And Boston is certainly a very emotional city. That was what I learned from living there. I think that the relief the city's feeling right now is something that a lot of people are going to enjoy for a while. The process though is pretty complicated, and I think as Max was saying, we have a lot of facts that we don't quite have yet. The fact that these two suspects, one of them has been apprehended now and the other one is dead, doesn't by any means indicate that the bombing is solved. That what happened on Monday is now at some sort of final resolution. And there are going to be political consequences for that in areas that we can't even really imagine at this moment. People are already talking about consequences for the immigration bill, but who knows what else is going to come out of this? We got the Patriot Act out of September 11th. We really just don't know what's going to come next. And there are a lot of questions about the relationship with the United States and Russia that will certainly come up over the next couple of weeks. So I think it's going to be a really interesting road ahead.
Yeah,
I do want to say though that I don't think there's going to be a change in our foreign policy. A lot of people, they're afraid that when there's terrorism, they think of 9/11, they think of invading Afghanistan, Iraq. That's not going to happen this time. I do think that it will change the political situation within Russia, though. I think that Vladimir Putin is going to play up this threat, and he's going to use it to justify a highly aggressive position against the Chechens.
Well, I'm sure there definitely will be political posturing on many sides in this situation. The story is far from over. Let's hope that there will be no negative effects to all of this, but there's still a lot to follow. So, Zach, Max, and Michael, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Good to see you, Alana.
Thanks, guys. And joining me now to get some reactions are some